Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first Benjamin's Exotics Reptile Podcast. Now, since this is the first podcast we're ever doing on the channel, and the first podcast that I've ever been part of, we're going to talk about today, I think the best thing to talk about, is why you, the viewer, the person that's watching or listening to this podcast, should consider listening to Reptile Podcast. Now, I think that in the digital age that we're in right now, when we're talking about the online aspect of reptile keeping and the reptile hobby itself, the main two video or, I guess you could say, basically video types that we have here on YouTube or other video platforms are vlogging videos and educational videos. Vlogging videos talking about anything that's basically entertainment, the different challenge videos, stuff like that. And educational is basically, how to sex a snake, identifying different morph guides. This is what we would do on the main channel, Benjamin's Exotics YouTube channel. And anything like that. Those are the two main dominating forces. However, here on YouTube, becoming more and more popular, we also have the what you would call the Reptile Podcast, and these are a fantastic genre of video that I highly consider you guys checking out, and that's why I'm actually starting this podcast, the Benjamin's Exotics Reptile Podcast. So I think, whether you are just keeping a few species of reptiles or a few ball pythons or whatever it might be, or have any sort of job whatsoever, in our day-to-day lives, we're always going to have busy work, okay? So, like for myself, it could be scrubbing out tubs, cleaning water bowls, shipping things out, all these, even answering comments online, they take a little bit of brain power, but it's not really, it's basically the grind, it's the daily grind, the daily hustle, the daily thing that we need to do to achieve our goals. It might not be the most enriching thing. It's not like, interacting with actual people. It's not like interacting with customers. It's not like going to a show and building connections. It's not really the most enriching. It's not the most exciting, but it is very important for the success of the reptile hobby or a reptile business or whatever you want to call it, a reptile operation. That grind, that daily hustle is needed. However, lots of people will listen to things like music. I do that a lot when I'm cleaning out tubs and stuff like that. You can listen to music. You can even just, talk to yourself, whatever people want to do. But I think one of the best things you can actually do is invest back in yourself. We talk all the time on this channel and other channels about investing in reptiles, investing in reptile equipment, upgrading your equipment, upgrading your reptile game. But one thing we never really talk about is investing back in yourself. If you invest in a reptile, if you invest in a rack, that is a physical thing. But the best thing you can invest in, I think, is your own brain, investing back into your own knowledge base. And if you really want to become a master or a really, I guess you'd say, a powerhouse, or if you really want to be a part of this reptile community in a serious way, you need to up your brain power. You need to up your information intake on a daily basis. I'm always trying to get more information, acquire new knowledge, getting the most up-to-date information on reptile care, reptile morphs, stuff like that, and that's what podcasts can do. So we're doing all this busy work. It could be, like I said, I keep going back to cleaning tubs, scrubbing water bowls. I say that because I know lots of people that do keep anywhere above, 5, 10, 15 snakes, or I should say reptiles in general. You're going to be doing that on a pretty day-to-day basis. And instead of just spending that time, listening to music or just, cleaning tubs in silence, you can actually turn on a podcast and listen to it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you're doing this daily grind. And you can actually take all the information and just feed your mind and let your mind just go off on tangents and really think about the information at hand. And it's not just with cleaning out water bowls. It could be with anything. Busy work at your job, if you work a 9 to 5, if you own another business, any sort of busy work that you're doing that doesn't require a lot of brain power, you can turn on one of these reptile podcasts and just feed your mind on all these different topics. And the main advantage this has over like a traditional video, so a traditional educational video or a traditional vlogging video, is that, again, as you guys can probably already understand, you don't actually have to watch the video itself. Especially, like I said, for busy people that have a lot of stuff to do in the day, you want to get that information that you need to up your reptile game, your reptile breeding game, your morph game, whatever it might be, but you don't have the time to sit down and watch a 20 or 30 minute video. That's what these podcasts can do. Now, not only are these basically not interactive videos, so these are not videos that require you to be watching directly what we're doing on the screen, and actually lots of the podcast people don't have anything going on the screen. Maybe at some point I can put in my face, just myself talking, whatever, to make the video a little bit more enriching for those of you guys that are just watching the screen or maybe kind of relaxing and just taking in what I'm saying. But I think But for people that don't have that luxury, that's what these podcasts can be for. And also, with these interactive videos that we do on morph guides and stuff like that, they're basically, these podcasts can actually be an extension of what we do in the videos. So let's take, for example, like I just said, the morph guides. If you guys are, familiar with the channel, if you're not, you can check out the Benjamin's Exotics YouTube channel. Here on YouTube, we're also on a few other video platforms, and you can basically take a look at some of the morph guides that I've done and kind of see what those are about. So if you want to watch that, you can kind of come back to the podcast and you can kind of understand what we're saying. So we take a look at something like a morph guide, okay? What am I doing in the morph guide? I'm showing you guys a snake. We're looking at the snake. We're basically identifying how to identify it from a normal, if it's a really kind of like an enchy or a yellow belly or a spot nose, anything like that. It's pretty close to normal. We look at how to identify it from a normal. We look at how to identify it from other genes, so things like a pastel. We might talk about how to identify the difference from a pastel and orange dream with the cleaning and the two-tone of the pastel and stuff like that. All of those aspects, the visual aspects, we can talk about in a interactive video like a morph guide. So we can actually look at the snake and we can do all that stuff. And those videos can be, maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes long at most. I don't think I've ever done a video, unless it's like a Reptile Expo, something like that, that's over 30 minutes long. Okay, 30 minutes is like the top so we can do. But those are just learning about the tools, okay? So you're learning about the hammer and the screwdriver. You don't actually then know, the next step would be to learn how to apply those. So when we learn and we're identifying, what the morph does, what the morph, what effect it has on other morphs, how to identify it, that's learning about the hammer, that's learning about the screwdriver, that's learning about the tools, which are the morphs. Then we want to say, okay, we have the tools, how are we going to build our creation? And that's what we can also go into in these podcasts. So if we talk about like line breeding or how to select your founding stock for your projects, all that kind of stuff, the really in-depth stuff, the stuff that does take an hour and a half, 2 hours to really go in-depth and get an accurate understanding of what the subject is about, that's what these podcasts can do. So like for the morph guides, again, we might do all the visual stuff in one video, so a 20-minute video on a pastel, we can learn how to identify it, but then we might do a separate podcast that's an hour and a half long, talking about how the pastel really reacts with other genes. What are some of the advantages of the pastel? How the pastel interacts in the market? How pastel interacts with orange dream? All these much more in-depth things that we couldn't even imagine doing in a small, short 20-minute video is also a huge advantage that these podcasts have over your standard interactive video. And this actually gets into why I first started this podcast as well, because not only are there massive benefits for you guys, you don't have to actually be watching the video, you can just listen to it while you're doing busy work, and of course we actually have the opportunity to go more in depth on different topics, but it's also a big positive for me in some ways and a negative in other ways. So one of the biggest positives for me, at least on this podcast, and if you guys have other channels, you might even consider doing your own podcast as well, is that for a podcast, I don't have to be sitting here and really multitasking with a bunch of things. So when I'm doing a normal standard video, I normally film my average videos, so I'm talking about the interactive vlog type videos from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Every day, if I'm going to film a video, that's the timeline or the time frame that I'll do it. But the problem with that can be is that if I have a lot of stuff to do that day, or if I'm going to be doing stuff and working until 7, 9, 11, even 1 a.m. at night, or say 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to be very busy that day, there's no way I'm going to be able to film a video. However, with this podcast, I have my own little studio right now. It's nothing fancy. It's I'll probably put some pictures up on Instagram or something like that, and it's literally just basically a closet with a little bit of soundproofing. It's nothing fancy at all. But now I can actually sit down in the small little room, and I can just talk into the mic, go into the computer, of course, download it on YouTube and all that basic editing stuff like that. But it's a lot less of a process. With an actual video, I have to think about, making sure the snake is looking good, make sure the camera's functioning, make sure the white balance is accurate, make sure the audio is good, make sure that when we edit it, everything goes smoothly, and make sure that we're not rambling, all that kind of stuff in a standard interactive video. Whereas with the podcast, even though I have to do it a lot longer, so I might have to go for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, I don't have that massive editing process. Now I might, edit things here or there to make the podcast be a little bit more smooth, and I'll of course put in like an intro and an outro to every single podcast, but that takes a few minutes. So for me as well, if I really want to pump out content for you guys, every single day. If there's one day, like I said, where I'm just working way too long and there's no way I'm able to get a video for that day, I can actually upload a podcast, and that will actually be the content for that day. So even if it's not maybe the interactive video that we normally have on the channel, there is something. So for people that really, they want the daily information, this is a channel where you can come and get that information. And if I'm being 100% honest, and this is kind of, I don't know if anybody else does this, I'm sure I'm probably one of the only people that does this, but I've literally been rehearsing for podcasts for like the last 2.5, maybe 3 years. It's really weird, and people have, it's, how do I explain this? So basically what I'll literally do, and it's kind of weird, when I'm cleaning out tubs or cleaning water bowls or stuff like that, I'll just talk to myself about these different topics, talk about morphs to myself, talk about, all these weird things, and it does freak people out occasionally when they walk, into the room or something and you're sitting there talking to yourself and there's no video going on. But I've been rehearsing for this, so all I'm going to do is basically when I have something on my mind or I have something that I really want to communicate, instead of just sitting there and talking to myself and doing whatever, now I can actually go ahead and I can put this out to the the audience on YouTube. And it might sound a little bit weird. I don't know if anybody else talks to themselves. I'm sure some people do, but it's something that I've been doing for quite a long time, and now I can actually put it in a podcast form, so I can not only record it and show it, or I should say share the information with you guys, but I can also go back myself and watch it and analyze and see, and kind of rehearse and think about these things in a little bit more depth. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of advantages to this podcast. Now, I'm going to try to wrap things up really quick here because, again, this is kind of an intro, just giving you guys a small taste of what the podcast is going to be about. I don't want to drag this thing out for a really long time. I just want to give a pretty good idea of what this is going to be about. This is also an audio test. I've been testing out the microphone I'm using right now for maybe the last 2 to 3 weeks, and I've used a variety of different microphones, but this is the one that I've stuck with and I think is going to work the best. You guys tell me what you think about the audio quality and stuff like that. But the last thing I want to talk about is a question that I've got quite a few times, and what might surprise some people is why I'm starting this on a new channel. So, as you guys can see, this is currently on the Benjamin's Exotics podcast YouTube channel. This is not on our main channel, just called Benjamin's Exotics. This is on a separate channel, and really, I went back and forth for weeks on this. I was going to say, at first I was like, I'm just going to put it on the main channel, then I wanted to do this channel, went back and forth, I put a bunch of polls up on the poll section, the community section of the Benjamin's Exotics YouTube channel, which if you guys are not subscribed to that channel, you need to subscribe to that channel. We do videos every single week, trying to give you guys the best morph information, best care information for your pet reptiles. And if you get subscribed as well, or I should say if you subscribe to that channel, you get access to the polls that we do every single day. And on the community section, I put in probably, I think, it was 3 or 4 polls over the last month and a half, something like that, talking about the podcast. And I actually did a poll just a few days ago. I don't know when this video is getting released. Well, actually, this video is going to be out on the 1st of January. That's when it's being premiered. But basically, I released a poll, and I asked people if they thought it should be on the main channel or this channel. And I got about a little bit over 70%, if I believe. It could have changed by now, but I think it was a little bit over 70% of people thought it should be hosted on the main channel. And in many ways it makes sense, because that channel is already to 1,000 subscribers, so it's monetized, so I could actually put this content on that channel and make money from it, which again, it's not much. It might be a few dollars here or there from the videos, but it does help a little bit, pays for some of the food bills. Sometimes the money I make off YouTube doesn't even cover the food bills right now, but we're working to change that and stuff like that. So there's that advantage of the monetization aspect. Also, most of the people that are already subscribed to that channel would get notifications of the video if they hit the bell icon, or they're going to see it pop up, and there's a bunch of advantages. But the thing is that main channel, the Benjamin's Exotics channel, I want that channel to be basically a library, so people can go through, scroll through, look at the playlist on that video, and just have it as a wealth of information and knowledge about not only morphs, but ball python care. Not just ball pythons. We are going to do a few other species in the future. Nothing major. I'm not a big advocate of working with like 50 different species, but definitely ball pythons are the main entree. They're the main course. Think about like a meal at a restaurant. They're the main course, but I like to have some spices, some accents on the side of the main course, which could be some other species, but our primary focus is ball pythons. But back to what I was saying, I want that channel to be a library for all of this great information on morphs and care. And those are all kind of interactive videos, and the people that have subscribed to that channel have subscribed specifically for interactive videos. And I think this is a great launch. I think that this podcast has a lot of potential, definitely. And the other YouTube, there's a bunch of other podcasts that have a lot of potential as well, but for me at least, I don't think it'd be a great idea to launch on that channel, because those people, 3,000 some people, have subscribed specifically for interactive videos that you're going to sit down and watch. And I don't know if that audience would appreciate a podcast as much as a separate audience might. So basically, it's a completely different person that listens to both the interactive and podcasts. I know lots of people that watch both. Personally, I do listen to and watch both. I watch whenever I have the chance. I don't watch much YouTube nowadays, but on a daily basis, I try to watch a few interactive videos, so a few visual videos from YouTubers that I respect, and then on the podcast, I'll of course listen to maybe one or two podcasts every day when I'm doing my busy work and different things like that. But I think that for the most part, it's a different type of person. Some people, like I said, are going to watch both, but the person that likes the interactive videos, the sort of more entertainment side of things, may not want to sit down and listen to a podcast. And instead of, throwing these, and I don't want to basically flood my main channel, Benjamin's Exotics, with a bunch of podcasts that might not do so well. Because if those podcasts don't do well, due to the YouTube algorithm, not only will they drag themselves down, but they'll actually drag the rest of the channel down as well. So by starting this new channel, even though I am missing out on some monetization opportunities, I might be missing out on a little bit of higher viewership, I think over the long run, this is going to be a better way to do it, because I can build a small community. Well, I want to get it as large as possible, but basically, I can build a community of people who like the podcast, and then if they like the videos, they can go over to the videos as well. I do not expect the podcast to be nearly as popular as the main videos, because people like the more kind of interactive, educational, visual type stuff a lot more, I think, than the podcast, because podcasts are longer, and podcasts are specifically for people that have a lot of what I would call busy work, people that really have a lot of that to do and do not have time to sit down and watch a 20 or 30 minute video. So I think that by doing this on this channel, on the Benjamin's Exotics podcast YouTube channel, we can actually maybe have a little bit more success. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take for this channel to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend, for you guys at all, for you guys that are watching this. If I do, 5, 6, 10 of these, and they're just all bombing on this channel, so if I did a bunch of these videos, and they were only getting, maybe 2 or 3 views, okay, which would be probably mainly me watching them and rewatching them and stuff like that, I won't be able to do this on this channel. I'll just have to only do the interactive videos on the other channel. But I really think there's a lot of potential for this podcast, and hopefully anybody that does appreciate the podcast will subscribe not only to the main Benjamin's Exotics YouTube channel, but also come here. I look at this as basically a branch off from our main channel. If this content, if the podcast was more similar to the videos that we currently do, I would probably include them in the same channel. I would upload them to the same Benjamin's Exotics channel, but they're not. The interactive videos in these are completely different. In the interactive videos, I have the visual aspect, which is a big advantage that I do not have in the podcast aspect. But in podcast, I have a lot longer that I can talk, a lot longer that I can express my ideas and express what I'm thinking about relative to our main channel, and they're too different. Now, I will, of course, have a playlist of all of these videos, all the podcasts, on the main Benjamin's Exotics channel, not the Benjamin's Exotics podcast channel, the main channel that almost has 3,000 subscribers as of the recording of this. I will, of course, have a playlist on that channel, but no podcast, as far as I know, and as of right now, no podcasts are going to get uploaded to that channel, just because I don't want to have. The libraries are too different. This is going to be a library, which is what I think about it, a library and a big playlist of podcasts for people that do not have time to watch the average videos but still need in-depth information. It's a completely different market, different people, and hopefully that gives you guys a pretty good idea understanding of my thoughts on this and why I have chose to use this channel to upload these videos compared to the normal Benjamin's Exotics YouTube channel, which is our main channel. So overall, I hope you guys did enjoy, most importantly, benefit from this podcast. Again, this video is we're right about 20 minutes and 23 seconds, and I didn't want this to be an incredibly long video. I just wanted to give you guys a small taste into what this channel is about. This is the first video, and our videos from here going forward will definitely be a lot longer and will be in a lot more detailed context, will be in a lot more specific subjects than today's video. But hopefully you guys did enjoy, most importantly benefit from today's podcast. My name is Benjamin, and I'm signing off from the very first Benjamin's Exotics Reptile podcast.